A dramatic showdown of competing testimony is set for next Monday in the United States Senate. President Trump's Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh will address the allegation he sexually assaulted a peer when they were both in high school in the 1980s.
The explosive accusation from Christine Blasey Ford has derailed Kavanaugh's confirmation process. Some Republicans, like Senators Lindsey Graham, Jeff Flake, and Susan Collins, are now saying they need to hear more.
Everybody needs to be heard, but also people need to defend themselves.
I would have voted no this week, absent her being able to tell her story.
Obviously, if Judge Kavanaugh has lied about what happened, that would be disqualifying.
Well, Democrats are pushing the FBI to investigate Blasey Ford's claim, but the Bureau says there is no potential federal crime. California Senator Kamala Harris spoke earlier to CBS This Morning about next week's hearings and what she hopes to learn.
I think that the issue here is that this is not about necessarily a criminal investigation. This is also about what we need to do around a background investigation into who Brett Kavanaugh really is. The American public deserves to know the character of someone who will serve for his entire life on the highest court in our country. And I think one of the issues that is getting a bit conflated here is the distinction between a criminal investigation and a background investigation. I want to know about this guy's background, and the American public wants to know about his background. We need to know, are we about to put somebody on the United States Supreme Court who committed a sexual assault?
So the FBI has done 6 background checks. Are you calling into question the integrity of the FBI?
No, I don't think we have to go there, Nora. I think that the issue is that the FBI needs to do a background check on this particular issue and provide it to the United States Senate, who has a constitutional responsibility to advise and consent on a nominee to our highest court who will, again, serve for his lifetime.
Senator Harris, this is a classic he said, she said case. Somebody isn't telling the truth. He says he wasn't even at the party. So what is your process to determine who's telling the truth here?
Well, listen, I think it's going to be about, it comes down to credibility, to your point, Gail, and it's going to be about listening to what each party has to say, but I believe her. Listen, first of all, anybody who comes forward at this point to be prepared to testify in the United States Senate against someone who's being nominated to one of the most powerful positions in the United States government, that takes an extraordinary amount of courage. And frankly, you know, I have personally prosecuted sexual assault cases, and my concern is, and she knows this, she is putting herself out there knowing that they're going to try and excoriate her. And she's doing it, I believe, because she knows that this is an important matter. It's a serious matter who serves on that court, and she has the courage to come forward. She has nothing to gain.
So, Senator,
what does she have to gain?
So given those concerns, would you ever put a crime survivor on the stand, let alone before the American people, without first doing an investigation?
I believe that that the FBI, Nora, to your point, it should be compelled to do its job in terms of completing their background investigation. And that's not being done. And the White House is not directing it. The Department of Justice is not directing it. I'm not faulting the men and women of the FBI. I think we have an extraordinary amount of talent in that agency who are really well equipped to do this kind of investigation. But they're not being given the authority to do it. That's the concern I have.
Nancy Cordes joins us now from Capitol Hill. So, Nancy, let us talk about this testimony on Monday from Judge Kavanaugh as well as Dr. Blasey Ford. What is the process? What can we expect? Will this be more than just a he said, she said?
You know, we're still waiting for some of those details, frankly, Anne-Marie. All of this came together so quickly yesterday after so much back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, among Republicans, that the invitation was only extended publicly at the very end of the day from Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, offering both Ford and Kavanaugh the chance to testify on Monday. So we don't know quite yet what the format is going to look like, how long they will both testify, whether anyone else will be called to testify as well. What we do know is that there are 21 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, 17 men, 4 women, 11 Republicans, 10 Democrats, and via standard procedure, they'll all have a chance to question both Ford and Kavanaugh. But beyond that, we're still missing a lot of the logistics, and frankly, we haven't even gotten official word from Ford that she does, in fact, intend to testify on Monday. Yes, she said before the fact that she was willing to do so, but we haven't heard back from her camp yet. We do know that Kavanaugh has said that he's willing to testify and eager to clear his name because he does not he doesn't think that any of this happened, and he doesn't even think he was at the party.
All right. So, Nancy, President Trump says the Democrats waited months before going public with these allegations, but did not lash out against next week's hearings. I want to play a bit of what he had to say yesterday, and we'll talk about it.
But with all of it being said, we want to go through a full process. I have great confidence in the U.S. Senate and in their procedures and what they're doing, and I think that's probably what they're going to do. They'll go through a process and hear everybody out. I think it's important. I believe they think it's important. But again, he is one of the great intellects and one of the finest people that anybody has known. You look at his references, I've never seen anything quite like it. So they'll go through that process and we'll get it done.
So a fairly subdued, sort of on-message President Trump there and reacting to the news. There are political pundits on both sides of the aisle who feel that for the GOP, these hearings next week are probably a lose-lose situation, in the fact that many of President Trump's and Brett Kavanaugh's supporters are already attacking her and the Democrats for suggesting that they waited so long to divulge this information, when in fact, according to Blasey Ford, she is the one who asked her representatives and Senator Feinstein to hold off on, or at least to not divulge her identity. What are you hearing about how people are feeling about how this hearing, this public hearing on Monday, is going to just play out perception-wise across this republic?
Look, there's no question that this is going to be an incredibly fraught experience. There are people up here who say they still feel scarred by Anita Hill's testimony a couple of decades ago as part of the Clarence Thomas confirmation process. There are a lot of regrets over the way that she was treated by the Senate Judiciary Committee, the fact that other witnesses weren't allowed to come forward. And so, yes, there is an awareness that the way that this hearing is handled, the way it goes down, could have repercussions well beyond this one nominee and his confirmation. And so you've got that awareness. At the same time, you've got Republicans very eager to wrap up this confirmation process as quickly as possible, because you've got a midterm election coming up in about a month and a half. The balance of the Senate is up for grabs, and they could lose their majority. So they feel there is no time to waste. So you've got those two competing instincts. One, to wrap this up as quickly as possible. On the other side, to make sure that everyone has their say and is respected, and that the charges are considered carefully. And so you can see why there is so much tension on both sides. It's understandable that Republicans are frustrated that they wanted to hold a vote in the Senate Judiciary Committee this week on the Kavanaugh nomination, and they're now frustrated that they're going to have to delay it. Democrats say that is not their fault, that it was Ford's decision, as you pointed out, Vlad, to remain anonymous throughout the summer, and it was her decision to go public after word of her letter leaked. They say that's something that was out of their control.
All right, Nancy Cordes, well, I know what we'll be doing Monday. You too, watching that testimony really closely. Thanks a lot, Nancy.
You're welcome.